The night air smelled faintly of gasoline and rain. In the distance, headlights flickered along the empty stretch of highway, but in front of the broken-down luxury car, silence reigned, except for the sharp tap of high heels against the pavement. A woman, tall, elegant, and radiating authority even in the shadows, slammed her car door in frustration. She was used to boardrooms, billion-dollar deals, and the effortless respect that came with her name. But tonight, even her wealth and power couldn't coax the stubborn engine of her car back to life. And then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed him. A man, rugged but calm, walking with a small toolbox in hand. His shirt sleeves were rolled to the elbows, and there was an unshakable steadiness in his eyes. He wasn't the kind of man who belonged in her world of limousines and skyscrapers. He looked ordinary. But there was something extraordinary in the quiet strength of his presence. She gave him a dismissive smirk. "You think you can fix this? This engine has beaten 2 of my best mechanics. If you fix it." She paused, her laugh sharp and mocking. "I'll marry you." She expected him to laugh with her, to shrug and walk away, to feel small in the face of her challenge. But instead, he looked her straight in the eye, nodded once, and said softly, "Deal." That was the moment everything changed. The CTA Fei Wunshan. If this story already has your heart racing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kinless Universe, where stories of hope, courage, and love come alive every day. She thought he was joking, of course. Men often made big promises around her, but none ever kept them. But as she stood there, arms crossed, watching him kneel beside her luxury car, she realized this wasn't a man who talked much at all. He was a man of action. His hands moved with precision, like someone who had wrestled with engines 1,000 times before. Grace smudged his skin, but there was a strange kind of grace in the way he worked. Every twist of the wrench, every careful adjustment, told a story she couldn't yet see. "Who are you?" she asked finally, curiosity breaking through her arrogance. He didn't look up. "Just a dad, trying to make a living." That answer struck her more deeply than she expected. She looked closer and noticed something she hadn't before. A little girl, no older than 7, sitting quietly on the curb nearby, hugging a worn-out teddy bear. Her eyes were wide, watching her father with a trust so complete it made the CEO's heart ache. The single dad worked for hours, not once complaining, not once asking for anything in return. And when the engine finally roared back to life, she felt her throat tighten. He stood up, wiped the sweat from his brow, and gave a small nod. "There," he said simply. For the first time in years, she was speechless. The female CEO, whose name was Isabella Hart, had built her empire on sharp wit and unbreakable walls. She had learned long ago that people only saw her as money, power, or opportunity. Love had never been more than a word in the dictionary of her life. But that night, watching a humble man fix what no one else could, something stirred inside her, something she couldn't name, yet pride wouldn't let her show it. She tossed her hair back, scoffed, and said, "Well, congratulations. Looks like you're my fiancé now." He only smiled faintly and walked back to his daughter, lifting her into his arms. "She's the only one I'm worried about marrying me," he whispered, kissing the child's hair. That answer, gentle, almost too soft to hear, haunted her for weeks. Days passed, but Isabella couldn't forget him. She found herself thinking about his steady hands, his quiet determination, and the way his daughter's eyes lit up when she looked at him. For the first time in her life, billion-dollar contracts and glittering events felt empty. She asked her assistant to look into him. His name was Daniel Miller. He was a widower, a single dad who had lost his wife years earlier in a tragic accident. Since then, he'd been raising his little girl alone, working 2 jobs, and fixing cars in his free time to make ends meet. The report should have been routine, just another piece of information in her carefully controlled world. But as Isabella read about his struggles, his sacrifices, and his unwavering love for his daughter, her chest ached. He wasn't just a man who had fixed her car. He was someone who had chosen love over comfort, family over ambition, and she wasn't sure she'd ever chosen love for anything. One afternoon, she did something reckless. She drove to the small garage where he worked. It was nothing like the polished corporate spaces she ruled over, just a dusty workshop with tools scattered across wooden shelves. Daniel looked up, surprised to see her. "CEO Hart," he said, almost nervously. "Isabella," she corrected, her tone softer than usual. His daughter ran up to her with innocent excitement. "Are you the lady who gave Daddy a marriage deal?" she asked, jiggling. Isabella's cheeks flushed for the first time in years. Daniel quickly hushed his daughter, but Isabella knelt down, smiling despite herself. "Yes, sweetheart," she admitted. "But I think your daddy deserves better than a joke like that." The little girl tilted her head, thoughtful. "Daddy deserves someone who makes him smile." Her words pierced Isabella like lightning. Over time, their worlds began to collide again and again. She started finding excuses to stop by the garage, bringing coffee, or asking for advice about her car, even when she didn't need it. He never once asked for anything in return, never treated her like a CEO, and never tried to impress her. Instead, he listened. He talked to her like she was just a woman, not a powerful mogul, not a brand, but a human being. And in those conversations, she realized how starved she had been for something real. Still, pride and fear clung to her heart. She couldn't let herself fall, not for a man who had nothing to offer her world. At least nothing her world valued. Until one night, when everything changed. Isabella had been invited to a gala, one where every influential figure in the city would be present. She was surrounded by glitter, laughter, and champagne, but all she could think about was Daniel. So, she excused herself early and drove straight to his garage. When she arrived, she found him sitting on the floor with his daughter asleep in his lap, both of them wrapped in a blanket. He looked up, startled, as Isabella stepped inside. "What are you doing here?" he whispered. She hesitated, her usual confidence gone. "Looking for something money can't buy," she admitted. He said nothing, just studied her in silence. And then, for the first time, she let her walls fall. She told him about the loneliness behind her empire, the emptiness of her victories, and the truth she had buried for years, that all her success meant nothing if she couldn't find someone to share it with. Daniel listened without judgment, only reaching out to gently take her trembling hand. And in that moment, Isabella Hart, the woman who thought she needed no one, realized she had finally met the one person she couldn't live without. CTA with 2E. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe so we can keep sharing stories of love, kindness, and hope that remind us all of what really matters. Months later, at a small wedding surrounded not by cameras and investors, but by laughter, children, and genuine friends, Isabella kept her word. She married the humble single dad who had once fixed her broken engine, but, more importantly, had fixed the emptiness in her soul. As she looked at Daniel holding her hand and his daughter smiling up at her, Isabella finally understood love isn't about wealth or status. It's about finding someone who sees you, not the power, not the title, not the mask, just you. And sometimes it begins with a joke that turned into a promise that turned into forever. Message: this story reminds us that life's greatest treasures are not found in power, money, or status, but in love, humility, and kindness. When we dare to look beyond appearances, we often find the very thing our hearts have been searching for.